This is Arts Alive. I'm Lynda Phillippi, and my guest today is Kendy Pearson. She is here to talk about her upcoming, very soon, writing workshop that she'll be leading. So welcome, Kendy.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad that you're here as well. Let's talk about this workshop. It sounds exciting.
Well, for a certain group of the population that write novels or want to be writing novels, November is known as NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month. And so this month in October, I have been teaching a 3-hour intensive workshop at libraries around Oregon. And tomorrow, Thursday from 4 to 7, I'll be here in McMinnville.
Oh.
And then Saturday in Wilsonville at the library there.
Okay.
And anybody can go to my website if they want to know, information about that, kendypearson.com. But NaNoWriMo is basically encouraging people to write their novel in a month. And so I have 9 other writing workshops that I do around the state. And I put together a 3-hour one that is designed for people who want to write that novel in 1 month. So that's basically what it's about. I divided it up into 3 sections, ready, set, go. And some of the things that we're going to be covering is what do you really need to know before you start writing that novel. We talk about understanding story arc and plotting. So many times people, when they think, oh, I want to write a novel, and this is my idea, this is what's going to happen, this is my premise, I'm going to, that's just like usually the middle half of the novel. They have to set it up and they have to resolve it. So we talk a lot about story arc, and that's probably one of the bigger things that I talk about, because a lot of times people just want to sit down and start writing. But for a novel to be a good story from start to finish, and especially if it's going to be publishable, then it needs to have consistent things happening throughout the story arc. And some people don't quite understand that. So I go over that, in 2 different things. And we talk about timelines and the research that it needs to be done. A lot of things that people don't think about. I always give the example of, if you're going to write a story that takes place in the Midwest, those little bugs that light up, that fly around in the summertime, don't call them fireflies, because in the Midwest we call them lightning bugs. Just little things like that. Research about all kinds, what plants grow in the area, what do people say, Coke or pop or soda? I mean, you've got to do your research, and some people just don't think about a lot of these little things. But I've written 4 novels, and there's all these little things that come to mind as you're writing them. But in my workshop, what I'm trying to do is point out all these things that people can prepare ahead of time. In fact, they can prepare them for, weeks ahead of time, so that when they start writing their novel, man, they're ready to go. Just, hit the ground running. So
are you a forest or the trees kind of writer?
Both.
Okay.
I think, this is a problem. So many people just see the trees and they don't see the forest, and then the reader comes and sees the forest. I think that's the premise of this whole workshop, is getting to help people understand that it's not just them writing the story. They have to get the setting right. They have to think of their reader. There's a saying for novelists, think reader first. And if that reader encounters things that are not realistic, that are false, they know you haven't done your research, and they're going to lose interest in your book pretty much. Whether it's plot or character that drives somebody to read a book, they're still going to get thrown off track if you do some really obvious things and they're like, no, that's not right. They didn't research this. I'm a historical fiction writer, so I really notice those things. You spend way more time researching than writing the book.
I can imagine.
So we cover a lot of those things that people don't think of sometimes when they want to launch into it. And the idea is to not get tripped up, to do all this preparation ahead of time and know what you've got to do before you start writing, because otherwise you'll be interrupted. How are you going to get your word count in every day if you have to stop and do research?
Right.
So
the whole NaNoWriMo thing, right? That you can write a novel in a month. That's basically saying you're going to write 10 pages a day.
Yeah, it goes by word count pretty much, but that does vary for each person.
Right,
yes,
of course.
You
but
have
I mean,
to.
You can't start fresh on November 1st and say, okay, I have this great idea.
Exactly.
I'm going to bang this thing out, boom,
Yes.
without having done the prep.
That's exactly right. In fact, a lot of what I teach are little tricks of the trade, so to speak, and shortcuts and things that I learned along the way. My very first novel, I told myself, oh, I'm going to do NaNoWriMo. I'm going to do it in November. And about 2 weeks ahead of time, I started doing the research for a novel that takes place in 1863. Yeah. And so
How's that going to be?
I found out that this was an ocean, and I thought it was a little pond of information. And the more I dug in, the more I found out I didn't know, and
maybe next November.
Yeah, well, what I basically did is I realized, you know what, November has Thanksgiving. I've got 4 grown kids. Wait a minute, I can't. So I encourage people to find their own novel writing month. I really am a big proponent of writing your novel in a month because it works. It doesn't work for everybody. I know people that have taken a year or 2 or 3 to write a novel. But if you plan to be a published novelist and you need to pound out more books. So you need to find a way to make yourself keep going and get it done in a timely manner. So at minimum, you're doing 1 book a year. So my month for writing, because I started in that late October, became January, because I realized, you know what, January is perfect.
Especially around here.
Yes, you don't want to go outside.
Horrible. There's nothing going on. It's kind of a cultural wasteland. It's the perfect month.
Cultural wasteland.
Just sit by the fire, lock yourself in.
That's right, with your cup of tea.
Right,
yes,
and do the work.
Yes.
Good for you.
And that's what I did. So for my all 4 of my novels, I basically did my research in November and December. And then I wrote the novel in January. And I also teach people about what is a rough draft. The minute you start editing, you are setting yourself up for failure.
You can't edit as you go.
You can't, no. And you really have to turn off that editor brain. Although there are a few things I teach that you really got to know ahead of time before you start writing, not just the story arc, but you need to understand there's 5 functions of dialogue, because people don't skip dialogue. They skip narrative. So we're turning our narrative into dialogue, and there's a lot you can do through dialogue. And the other thing is point of view. If you don't understand how to master point of view before you start writing, it's going to be a nightmare when you finally understand it and go back and try to
untangle it.
Untangling, that's a very good word, yeah.
Well, you know what, it's really true, because you think about this. I mean, I think we're all guilty of skipping the boring narrative, and it's, just whatever, we've skipped. We have.
What's going to happen next, tell me.
But in real life, you're right, in real life, it's all conveyed through dialogue, because how we get all the context and the backstory is from talking to each other. So I like that. I like that.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to steer people in the right direction and cover some of the nitty-gritty stuff from some of my workshops in the form of craft. And then the other thing I do is offer a bunch of tricks of the trade and shortcuts. We talk about how to format your submission. I mean, if you're going to eventually submitting it to a publisher or an agent, you need to know right off the bat how to format that thing. And what I have also found is very often people that write novels, they're at a time in their life when they feel like, I've always wanted to do this and now I have time. Often they're older people. And there are some little things about using, like Microsoft Word, for example, that they don't know about. And so I teach people how to set up their spell check and proofreader right from the beginning, so that you don't end up with red underlines everywhere if you're like me and type with your eyes closed as you're thinking through your scene. And there's all kinds of things that they can do to set their computer up, set up their autosave, so that they don't have...
Autosave.
Yeah, that is the most wonderful thing.
When I was going to Linfield and I wasn't young, I went back to school when I was older, and I had to write this, the first time that I had to write a paper. I didn't really know much about computers, to tell you the truth, and I was 80 pages into it, and I didn't save it, and I lost the whole thing, and there was nothing I could do. Lesson learned.
Yes, yeah. Well, I think most of us have learned some hard lessons.
Yes, we have.
I just want to help people not make the mistakes that I have made over the course of working on all of these things that I've done, the writing and so forth. And so yeah, I kind of give them little tricks. Fancy, weird. I had a word that was hard to spell that I had to repeat a lot, and you just do little shortcuts. Put capital XXX or something, and then you search and replace later.
Right.
Anything to get you to keep going forward.
So that your brain doesn't stop.
Exactly.
Anything to
Yes.
like reduce a barrier to
You
the
bet.
flow. So people are going to show up tomorrow night, or they're going to show up on Saturday at the library, and tell me about the flow of the evening. Do they bring a notebook and pen? What do you need them to bring?
Well, typically I ask them to, don't worry too much about taking notes. I give them an outline of what
Okay.
I'm going through. And I also offer for them that I will send them the slides that they're looking
Oh,
at.
that's great. Okay.
Because a lot of them, otherwise I've seen when I first started teaching workshops a few years ago, they'll start writing notes like crazy.
Or this one, taking pictures.
Yes. Oh,
Pictures,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Screenshots.
Yeah.
And then you try to go back on your phone.
So
Yeah.
I will email them a PDF of what they're looking at.
And you tell them that right up front, so they don't have to worry. Okay,
right,
good. Okay.
right. And this workshop there's so much in it. It's 3 hours long, but there's so much in it that we don't take a lot of time to have them do the exercises and
sure.
so forth. But they do have them there. We do them together. We do them together. So that's a lot of fun.
And do you still have room for your upcoming workshops?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, no problem with that. Yeah.
Is it just a show up and be there, or do they need to
I don't think,
pre-register?
sometimes they require pre-registration, but I don't believe that McMinnville did.
Okay.
I know Wilsonville didn't. So
I know that if it's tomorrow night, this is going to maybe go up like tonight or tomorrow. So this is going to
Okay.
be very last minute, but hopefully it will be able to reach somebody.
yeah,
really
that would be
quickly.
great. Yeah, it's 4 to 7 at the McMinnville Library.
Okay, good.
And usually, there's a lot of people in McMinnville that love to write.
That's
I usually
absolutely
have
true.
Yeah, I have a good showing usually here in McMinnville.
Oh, I'm really glad to hear that.
So it's a lot of fun. A lot
Okay.
of repeat. I've had a few people contact me asking, when is it? Where is it? So,
Okay.
Yeah. So.
That's wonderful. So anything else that we should know about you in the 2 minutes we have left here?
Oh, well, I don't know. I'm a retired high school teacher, so I love to teach.
Okay.
And I love it when people come. A lot of times I get young people, like 12, 13, 14-year-olds.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
I can
There's
imagine.
a lot of people out there. And I think what I would say is if you are at all thinking about writing a novel, come to my workshops.
Okay.
It will be eye-opening for you.
That's
There's a
wonderful.
lot of books out there on how to write fiction. But I try to pick out the things that I know are the most helpful right up front to help you be successful.
Yeah, so almost like what do you want to say, novel writing hacks.
Yes.
So that you don't have to read 20 books.
That's right.
You can just start
That's
from
right.
where you are.
Because there are more than 20 books out there to read. You hit the nail on the head there.
Right,
There's a
okay.
lot out there, a lot to learn. There's a lot more to it than most people think there is.
And are you finding that it's a pretty decent climate for getting published these days?
Depends on what kind of publishing.
Right.
Right? You've got everything from self-publishing, vanity presses, traditional. It all depends
Okay.
on where you're at and what you want to do. Some people don't want to wait the 2, 3, 4 years to be tradition published.
They just rather get it
So,
out there.
yeah.
Well, Kendy, I really appreciate you coming in today and speaking with us, and wish you a lot of success. And I think your workshop sounds fun.
Well, thank you. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you
Okay.
for having me.